Hello everybody, I welcome you all in this new edition of news coverage and analysis from the Hindu newspaper dated 23rd February 2019. So what all are we going to cover is detailed here in this slide. You can pause the video and note down if you wish. So let's start with the first article. It says the terror monitor keeps Pak on grey list, seeks action. Condemning the Pulwama February 14th attack, the Financial Action Task Force, this is quite important for your pre as well as mains, issued a stern statement to Pakistan to comply with an action plan on terror financing or face further action, according to the decision taken by its plenary session in Paris on Friday. A week-long deliberations of 37-member group decided not to remove Pakistan from grey list as Islamabad had lobbied for, but also did not accept Indian demand to move Pakistan into blacklist yet. So what is this Financial Action Task Force, FATF? It is an intergovernmental body established in 1989 by the ministers of its member jurisdictions. The objective of FATF are to set standard and promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory and operational measures for combating money laundering, terror financing and other related threat to the integrity of the international financial system. The FATF is therefore a policy making body which works to generate the necessary political will to bring about national, legislative and regulatory reforms in these areas. The FATF monitors the progress of its members in implementing necessary measures, reviews money laundering and terror financing techniques, and countermeasures and promote the adoption and implementation of appropriate measures globally. In collaboration with other international stakeholders, the FATF works to identify national level vulnerabilities with the aim of protecting the international financial system from misuse. The FATF decision making body, the FATF plenary, meets 3 times per year. So every fact that I have mentioned here in this article is important for your pre as well as for mains. Now the next article at page 7 is India and Russia close to inking multi-billion agreement on AK-103 assault rifle. This rifle is going to replace the Sansa rifle of Ansas rifle of Indian Army. India and Russia are close to concluding the intergovernmental agreement IGA for a multi-billion deal to locally bulk manufacture AK-103 assault rifle in the next few months. The army has recently signed a contract for 72,400 assault rifle from Sig Sauer. This is important, of the US, and another tender for 93,895 close quarter battle CQB carbines is in an advanced stage of conclusion. These rifles are for frontline troop deployed in forward areas, and these actually would replace ANSAS rifles. Now the next article is BEML in talk for small plane project. Defense and mining equipment maker BEML is exploring a proposal from Russian aircraft maker Irkut Corporation to jointly assemble a small twin-seater civilian aircraft in the country. Irkut is the original maker of the Sukhoi 30 fighter aircraft. The Indian Air Force operates Su-30s that are customized and licensed manufactured by Hindustan Aeronautical Limited at Nasik. So all the fact that I have underlined is important for you from your pre as well as mains point of view. The Bangalore based BEML set up an aerospace division in Mysuru about a decade back. It supplies airborne structure used in Su-30 as well as a ground handling equipment apart from system and components for Akash and other missiles. So all the fact that I have underlined is important for you. Now the next article is new brainwave, water from air and electricity. producing up to 1000 liters of water using air is the promise by which Bharat Electronics Limited and Hyderabad-based startup Matri showcased their atmospheric water generator machine at Aero India. This is important from your science tech point of view for your mains. Now we come to editorial. Without land or recourse. So what has happened in the recent past? The court has ordered the eviction of lakhs of people whose claim as forest dwellers have been rejected under the Scheduled Tribe and other traditional forest dweller, that is Recognition of Forest Right Act 2006, or commonly known as FRA, Forest Rights Act. So what is the story? In the case of Wildlife First and others versus Ministry of Forest and Environment and others, the details regarding claims made under FRA that were placed before the court by petitioner in 2016 had showed that about 44 lakhs claims filed before the appropriate authority in different states, almost 20.5 lakh claims, about 46.5%, were rejected. The order of the 2016 went on to observe, from Supreme Court, that obviously a claim in the context of above mentioned act is based on an assertion that claimant has been in possession of certain parcel of the land located in the forest area. So in this particular verdict, Supreme Court had acknowledged that these people who could not establish their claim were in possession of the land which are in the forest area. So basically they are staying in that area. So they belong to that Schedule 5 and 6 areas. Now what has happened now? From here, however, that the order did a jurisprudential somersault. This is what the author says. Now Supreme Court says that if the claim is found to be not tenable by the competent authority, the result would be that the claimant is not entitled for the grant of any patta or any other right under the act. But such a claimant is also either required to be evicted from that parcel of land, or some other action is to be taken in accordance with the law. So here Supreme Court had accepted that they are staying, and in recent verdict Supreme Court has simply changed its view and is saying that they should immediately be evicted from that area and they don't possess any kind of claim on those land, and in fact they cannot ask for any kind of patta. So this was the material part of the order. In words, the claimant cannot contest the decision of the authority. Now what author feels? That this order negates the claim of the citizen under the special protection of the Constitution vis-a-vis the scheduled tribes and other vulnerable communities already pushed by gross governmental neglect precariously to the edge. The question before us today centers on the responsibility of the Supreme Court in upholding constitutional claim and equal citizenship. It is a case of Supreme Court speaking against itself, because in previous judgment Supreme Court had accepted that they are part of that particular area or the ecosystem. Now Supreme Court is asking them to evacuate from that particular area. So it's basically Supreme Court is talking against itself. Now author asks some interesting question. It says that the most obvious one has to do with the meaning attached to the rejection of claim. So what do you mean by when you are saying that their claims were rejected? According to the 2014 report of the High Level Committee on Socio-Economic Health and Educational Status of Tribal Communities in India, constituted by Government of India, which is popularly known as SASA Committee, 60% of the forest area in the country is a tribal area protected by Article 19(5) and Schedule 5 and 6 of the Constitution, with specific reference to the claim under Forest Rights Act, reiterating the finding of several other studies that have documented the deep procedural flaw in processing claims. The SASA committee observed that the claims are being rejected without assigning regions or based on wrong interpretation of OTFD, that is other traditional forest dwellers definition, and the dependence clause, or simply for lack of evidence or absence of GPS survey lacuna, which only requires the claim to be referred back to the lower level body, or because the land is wrongly considered as a not forest land, or because only forest offense receipt are considered as adequate evidence. So these are the main lacuna that was highlighted by SASA committee, and these have been taken as a basis to make the reason for their eviction. And now the author is saying, when so many apparent lacuna are there, how Supreme Court can neglect that? And here we must understand that these areas are under Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. If you remember the rat hole mining case of Meghalaya, the contractors or the mine owners were asking that how can Supreme Court intervene when these areas are under Schedule 5 and Schedule 6, and that is protected. Since that area is protected by Schedule 5 and Schedule 6, the property or the land mines belongs to tribal areas, and that is to be utilized by the people living in those areas. So if their Supreme Court takes a one particular stance, how can Supreme Court take a different stance in this particular area and ask people to leave that area, or ask the state to evacuate them? The rejection are not being communicated to the claimant, and their right to appeal is also not being explained to them, nor its exercise facilitated. That's what SASA committee says. The mere rejection of the claim by the state therefore does not add up to the finding of the crime of encroachment. The sheer volume of the rejection should instead set alarm bell ringing in the court of procedural improprieties. So this is what author says, that if you see the volume, that means almost 4 million people are going to were evaluated, and 2.5 million people are supposed to get evacuated. So this kind of volume should ring a bell in the ears of Supreme Court that there is something missing, and there has to be some lacuna. Now what author says as a worry, the author's worry is that the immediate result would be the forced eviction of over 1 million people belonging to the scheduled tribe and other forest communities. Importantly, the area marked for eviction falls under the area designated and under Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. This is what I have been saying of the Constitution. There is no reference to the implication of for governance in scheduled areas, and whether the Supreme Court in fact has the authority to order eviction of scheduled tribes from scheduled area. And that's what I was referring to. That was the claim of land mine owners in Meghalaya regarding the order of Supreme Court and authority of Supreme Court in intervening in coal mine areas in Meghalaya. So author here is also making that kind of reference, that whether Supreme Court has got the authority to order eviction. In the democratic country with citizen and a written constitution which is affirmed by the people who are sovereign, how can we countenance the dismantling of an entire constitutional apparatus that prescribes the non-derogable boundaries to Adivasi homeland and institutional mechanism that promotes autonomy and restrain interference in self-governance? This is what the author asks. The presence of Article 19(5) in the Fundamental Right chapter of the Constitution, which specifically enjoins the state to make laws for the protection of the interest of any scheduled tribes, is vital. And how has the Supreme Court ordered the eviction is a complete disregard to the very core and express fundamental right protection to Adivasis. So basically the author is trying to highlight the point that Supreme Court has completely overlooked the provision that is given in Fundamental Right 19.5 and Schedule 5 and 6, and it has taken different stands at different point of time pertaining to different areas, and that it should be aware of. Now we come to the next article, that is mixed optics. This is related to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to Pakistan and then to India and finally to China. But the author has restricted itself on India and has tried to evaluate the implication of the visit and the outcomes. It says, seemingly it's a successful visit. As a standalone visit, the day-long trip of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to New Delhi will be regarded as a diplomatic success, given the numerous outcomes. The two sides announced measures to upgrade defense partnership, you should remember this, to create a strategic partnership council, to coordinate on security issues, and to institute regular talk between two national security advisors to discuss counter-terrorism, intelligence sharing, and maritime security. So Saudi Arabia has also expressed its interest in investing in infrastructure project worth about $26 billion. This is beyond its already committed investment in India of $44 billion. So in a nutshell, it is about $70 billion for existing joint venture with public sector oil undertaking and public fund investment of $10 billion. The language of the terrorism in the joint statement was not emphatic enough, but it was significant that the Saudi government agreed to insert an extra clause calling on states to renounce the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy. So this is what the author feels, that insertion of this particular clause makes Saudi Arabia stand by the side of India in case of any kind of terror attacks or sponsored terror attack. But MBS praised Islamabad for its fight against terrorism before coming to India. He also announced $20 billion worth of investment in addition to the previously announced aid of about $6 billion in cash and reserves. Modi government also overplayed its expectation from the visit by billing it as a part of diplomatic offense aiming at isolating Pakistan in order to hold its account for Pulwama, and actually it did not happen. So basically the author is saying that people would definitely, since MBS went to Pakistan and immediately came to India and in between happened this Pulwama attack, critics are bound to compare what MBS committed in Pakistan vis-a-vis what he has committed in India. Furthermore, there was a hype that his coming to India is basically a showcase that Saudi Arabia is tilting towards India, and maybe Saudi Arabia is distancing itself from Pakistan, and that the kind of award or the agreement that Saudi Arabia signed with Pakistan actually did not showcase that kind of warmth or enthusiasm. So how author sees this visit? India and Saudi Arabia has steadily built bilateral relation and taken great care over the past 2 decades to dehyphenate them from ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. India-Saudi Arabia ties were strengthened into a strategic partnership announced in 2010 in Riyadh Declaration when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh paid a visit, and were bolstered by King Salman's visit in 2014 and Mr. Modi's 2016 trip to Saudi Arabia. Point scoring with Pakistan or attempting to compare the outcome of the two visits now only undermines the carefully built compact between New Delhi and Riyadh. So basically the author is suggesting that we should not be comparing what is the relationship with of Saudi with Pakistan. Rather, we should focus on what has been the outcome or the progress that has been achieved by India with respect to its relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now we move to the next article. that is on page 11. Labor Bureau files Mudra job report. The Labor Bureau has completed its survey on employment generated by the Mudra loan scheme, giving center a potential data tool to combat other reports showing a dismal scenario on jobs. This is basically government has been criticized on the report that was leaked, that was draft report of NSSO, which had showed that the unemployment rate is at 6.1%, and that is highest in past 45 years. And since government was criticized, government is trying to use the data from Labor Bureau which pertains to the loan that is taken under Mudra scheme to showcase that new job is created. Basically, government is trying to project that if loan is taken from Mudra scheme, that means it would naturally culminate into creation of new jobs. So that would be projected as a new job creation, and government would try to supplement the report of NSSO, which draft report of NSSO, which got leaked couple of months back. So let's see how government projects it. But this is important to read this article, and then we will be able to analyze and appreciate the effort, the result when it is out. The Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana was introduced in April 2015 as an effort to extend affordable credit to micro and small enterprises, and that's where actually government is trying to pitch in Mudra scheme to showcase that if people are not going for job, they are creating job for themselves and for others. Loan up to, because in this particular scheme government cannot map directly, because if you are starting a big company, then you can very well map the job that is created, because that would be registered, how many employees are there, and through different measures. But if loans are taken in micro and small enterprises, maybe that is not registered with the government, and maybe employees working there, if they are less than 10, are not registered for under EPFO or the pension scheme. So it becomes quite tough to map the job that is created. But if some mechanism is devised and government could project the number of loans that is could project the job that is created based on the number and amount of loan that is taken under Mudra scheme, government would be able to showcase that basically job is created, and unemployment rate that is shown or criticized is not factually correct. So under the Mudra scheme, loan up to rupees 10 lakh are extended to those non-corporate, non-farm enterprises by the micro unit development and refinance agency, that is called Mudra. Through the last mile financing institution, so far 15.56 crore loans worth total 7.23 lakh crore have been disbursed. So basically government would try to showcase that minimum these many jobs are created, that is 15.56 crores. According to the report, a leaked copy of the NSSO's findings showed that the unemployment has hit a 45 years high of 6.1% in 2017-18, and this is what government is trying to protect. Government probably would try to pitch in the data, this particular data, that 15.56 crore loans were taken, that is worth 7.23 lakhs, and minimum these many jobs are created, or maybe multiples of 15.56 crores job has been created. So the data that is taken as 6.1% is not the right picture. Central government ministries and officers have already attempted to use Mudra scheme performance to combat criticism based on the leaks NSSO's job survey report. So maybe NSSO job survey report would be shown as the job that are actually mapped, and this would be pitched as jobs which are not mapped but they already have been created. And so what is the criticism? Given that the average size of a loan disbursed under the Mudra scheme is quite small, it is unlikely that the loan seekers are providing a job to everyone other than the other than themselves. So still government can say that minimum 15.56 crores job were created. So these are the details. Scheme was launched in April 2015 to extend affordable credit to micro and small enterprises. Loan size was up to 10 lakh. Total disbursal 15.56 crore loans worth 7.23 lakhs. Value proposition: use of variety of innovative financing means including the technology to bring down the cost of funding. A small manufacturer unit, service sector units, shopkeepers, fruit and vegetable vendors, truck operators, food service units, repair shop, machine operators, small industries, artisans, food processors and other in rural and urban areas are the main beneficiary of this Mudra scheme. So government is most probably is going to use this data to showcase that jobs are created more than what is shown or what has been criticized for. Now next article, China uses DNA to track its people with the US help. Quite a serious thing. Let's see what the article says. Chinese officials are collecting DNA as they got unlikely corporate and academic help from US to do it. So basically China probably is doing with the help of US in terms of technology. China wants to make the country's Uyghurs, a predominantly Muslim ethnic group, more subservient to the Communist Party. It has detained up to 1 million people in what China calls re-education camp, drawing condemnation from human rights group and a threat of sanctions from Trump administration. Collecting genetic material is the key part of China's campaign, according to the human rights group, the Uyghur activist. They say a comprehensive DNA database could be used to chase down any Uyghur who resists conforming to the campaign. To bolster their DNA capabilities, scientists affiliated with China's police use equipment made by Thermo Fisher, a Massachusetts company. For comparison with Uyghur DNA, they also relied on genetic material from people around the world that was provided by Kenneth Kidd, a prominent Yale University geneticist. So basically China is mapping those Muslim predominant West area and the community called Uyghurs so that their spread, their movement and their all activities could be mapped in case they try to attack or get involved in terror activity. They could be mapped. So basically the movement and all the activities of Uyghur communities are under the radar. Next article, Saudi Arabia China cement ties during Crown Prince's visit. So this is very important. Yesterday I was talking about MBS visit to Pakistan and then to India and its significance vis-a-vis India, Pakistan, India and China. So let's see what was announced as China. China and Saudi Arabia has cemented ties based on the stronger energy relationship as well as Riyadh's decision to distance itself from controversies surrounding its approach towards Xinjiang, where the Uyghur community resides. Saudi Arabia has also pledged support for the Belt and Road Initiative, a Chinese President Xi Jinping's signature connectivity enterprise. Prince Mohammed told President Xi that Riyadh respected and supported China's right to protect its own security and take counter-terror and de-radicalization steps. This is quite important for you to understand. Saudi Arabia wants Pakistan to contain Iran. Now, Saudi Arabia is supporting China in its endeavor to contain the Uyghur community who are getting radicalized as per China. And because of that, because of these Uyghur communities who resides in the western part of China, that China has got interest in Afghanistan because it senses or it suspects that Taliban or the Muslim radicals of Afghanistan are trying to radicalize these Uyghurs for their independent land or to create instability in China. And that's where China is seeking support of Saudi Arabia, who is actually fighting against Iran, and Iran is trying to destabilize Western Asia, that is in Syria or in Lebanon, and in fact has been supporting through technology and missiles. The state-run English language China Global Television Network also quoted President Xi as saying that Beijing and Riyadh should promote counter-terrorism cooperation in West Asia. This is important. Strengthen international cooperation and prevent the spread of extreme ideas. So in this particular point, Prince Mohammed supported China in counter-terror measures and de-radicalization measures in China in Xinjiang province. So in support, China is supporting Saudi Arabia in its effort for counter-terrorism in West Asia. So basically, Saudi Arabia is supporting China, and in response, China is supporting Saudi Arabia to contain Iran, basically the area of Lebanon and Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria. So basically, both are important to each other. So maybe we'll be seeing lots of reaction of Saudi Arabia when issues related to Afghanistan come up for discussion. So what to understand here? Saudi is pissed against Iran, against its interference in West Asia. China wants Islamic community support in its effort in Xinjiang, that is against Uyghur community. China has investment in Pakistan and has strategic interest in Afghanistan, because Afghani radicals can interfere in Xinjiang. Since Saudi has closeness with Pakistan, it is important for both China and Saudi Arabia to support each other, apart from each other's interest in different areas related to terrorism, that is in West Asia as well as in Western China. Now at page 13, time for independent debt management office. The idea of public debt management agency PDMA was proposed by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley in his February 2015 budget speech, though it has not yet been implemented. So the committee says that it is important for this particular office to be separate, because then you can pay much more attention on public debt management. That will help the government bring down the cost of its debt, because then this office will have a concerted effort and close monitoring on the debt and sourcing of debt, so that it could bring down the cost of debt. At present, the government debt, including the market borrowing, is managed by Reserve Bank of India. So basically, government is trying to create a separate entity to basically bring down the authority of Reserve Bank of India. The moment debt goes out of the hand of Reserve Bank of India, then the agency that is called the Debt Management Agency PDMA would become the most important agency in India. Then what Reserve Bank of India would be left with? It would be left with only the management of banking sectors and the interest rate. Since the debt and the sourcing of cost of debt or the sourcing of debt would not be in the hand of Reserve Bank of India, it would be tough for Reserve Bank of India to manage the market and to manage the inflation, because it would be tough for Reserve Bank of India to control all those monetary policies. So basically, government is trying to undermine the authority of Reserve Bank of India, or you can say that to bring down its authority. The government has to decide how to segregate different functioning of RBI, and because this is going to be very different and very difficult also, because open market operations of Reserve Bank of India would not be independent. It will have to consult Public Debt Management Agency to manage all monetary policies. Now next article, India to have own DNS for safe browsing. Again important for your pre as well as mains. The government will soon roll out public domain name server or DNS for India, aimed at providing a faster, a more secure browsing experience for internet users in the country, while ensuring that citizen data is stored locally. This is important point, and government has repeatedly been asking all those big internet giants to bring their data server in India. By having their own DNS, India would be able to store the data locally. And as Mukesh Ambani had said, data is the new oil. This particular phrase can also be quite important for you from essay point of view, and as well as question may be asked related to this in your mains, that please explain how data is the new oil. DNS is like a directory for the internet. It helps to convert domain names that are easy for people to remember into IP address. So basically, if you say that you have taken upscmentors.com, so if I have taken upscmentors.com, the backbone is an IP address which is tough for you to remember. It's easy for you to remember upscmentors.com. So that's what DNS does, which are used to come by the computer machine to communicate. So basic communication behind the scene is through IP address, and that is the main address. The main name or the domain name that we all use are basically to submask that IP address, to mask that IP address, so that the real identity is not revealed to the public. If the DNS is either slow or fails to work, users will not be able to locate the web address. Main aim is of bringing our own public domain or public DNS is to ensure availability, particularly for smaller internet service provider who don't have credible DNS. The bigger one usually have their own DNS, the IT ministry official said, pointing out that there were other open DNS server including Google public DNS, and the official said the government system would prevent users from visiting malicious websites. The rollout, which will be executed by the National Informatics Center, the technology arm of the government, will be completed by the next 4 to 6 months, the official said. NIC is already using the public DNS within the government network. So mechanism in place. Asked if the move would enable government to block content or help in surveillance, the official said if the government wants to block a website, we have a mechanism in place. We can send a list to the ISPs for regions such as the child porn or fake news, and they have to comply with the order. If you have any public DNS, they access and use all your data. It is not that the users will compulsorily need to shift to India public DNS. A user is free to choose any DNS, the official said, adding that with the government's public DNS, Indian user data would be stored within the country. The ministry, as a part of ongoing awareness campaign for safer internet, also plans to reach out to the end user to educate them on DNS and how they could shift to an Indian public DNS if they desire. So you got to understand, you have got your own domain name and then there is IP address. In between resides the DNS. Right now most of the DNS, and this DNS basically changes your domain name into IP address. Basic communication happens between IP addresses because this is like your postal code. So one machine has got one IP address, other would have a different set of IP address, and this IP address is masked by domain name, and that is done through DNS. So India is saying that if it has got India based DNS, the data is stored in India, and that way the data would be safeguarded and it would be easier to trace and locate malicious web pages. Now next article is joint effort vital for 5G rollout. Center is aiming to launch 5G in India by 2020. This is important for your brief. It is expected that the cumulative economic impact of next generation technology would be about $1 trillion by 2035. This is important for remains. 5G, the white paper said, would enable new capabilities and user cases which were set to impact not only consumer services but also many industries. With a range of 5G use cases across the industry, vertical requiring different characteristics. For example, low latency and high reliability application for robotics in manufacturing and automotive sectors, high data throughput requirement in augmented reality use cases. The traditional offering based on connection speed and volume usage could also see a shift. So you will have a different kind of requirement like low latency and high reliability application in robotics, because the movement has to be precision. If you are controlling a robotic arm by sitting somewhere in remote areas, or if say you are trying to operate a patient through robotic arm by sitting miles away or hundreds or thousands of miles away, then the reliability is the high key, low latency and high reliability is the key that can be provided through 5G. That can happen in operation or in automotive sector. Or if you are using augmented reality, you are imposing one image on other, or one animation or one video over other, and you are creating augmented reality. To make it look real, you need high data there. More than the reliability and low latency, the requirement is high data throughput, and this both thing to different spectrum can be brought down to one system through 5G. So that's why 5G is important, and it is expected that it will be able to generate a revenue of about $1 trillion by 2035. The next article, flying bulldog, world's largest bee spotted again. World's largest bee, a giant insect roughly the size of human thumb, has been rediscovered in a remote part of Indonesia in its first sighting in nearly 40 years, researchers said on Thursday. Despite its conspicuous size, no one had observed Wallace's giant bee, discovered in 19th century by British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, and nicknamed it as a flying bulldog, and it's wild since 1981. So basically this is important for your you may be asked what is flying bulldog, since it was listed in a global wildlife conservation list. So this is all for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.